roles by looking at a couple of actual cases where we've implemented multi-stakeholder organizations. You've been hearing this word a lot, and the idea is very simple. If you have a situation where you want to make a difference, to have some impact on a particular subject, you have a particular objective, moving it from policy to implementation means that you have to have some kind of organized way to move it forward. And we, in the internet governance space, we are committed to this idea of multi-stakeholders, where everybody who has a stake, who has an interest in a subject, a topic, an outcome, come together. You may come to it from different points of the compass, but in the end, what we want to achieve is an objective that we all share. So we're going to give you some case studies so you see how it works in principle and fact. We have two panelists, Jacqueline Morris and Jason Hynds. Jacqueline is from Trinidad and Tobago Computer Society. You've heard a lot about her contribution in the IG space for the last couple of days. She is going to talk about the TT Mag, how that was developed, and she'll tell you a lot about that. And then Jason is going to talk about the Barbados Mag that is involved in developing ISAC Barbados. So I'm going to now hand over to Jacqueline, who is going to describe how they develop TT Mag. Jacqueline.
Hi, thanks, Carlton. Hello, everyone. Okay, the TT Mag story is not really describe how it went. Basically, the TT Mag story is a story about internet governance. Better? Okay. The TT Mag story is a story of internet governance and the multi-stakeholder model that are used to move .tt, our CCTLD, our national patrimony, say, forward into a situation where we can actually help and solve issues in Trinidad and Tobago. So first, internet governance, what is it? I was a member of the WIGIG, just to be full disclosure, and we determined that internet governance was the development and application by governments, the private sector, and civil society in their respective roles of shared principles, norms, rules, decision-making procedures, and programs that shape the evolution and use of the internet. The thing about that now is that we needed to figure out, we left it so that everyone would figure out what those respective roles were for the various groups. And that came up to be the multi-stakeholder model. And the CCTLD, the multi-stakeholder model, is the local application of the general principles of internet governance. Oh, thanks. Yeah. The general principles of internet governance, which came out of Tunis 2005. And that's where we determined what those principles, shared principles of internet governance needed to be. And they should be multilateral, transparent, and democratic, with the full involvement of governments, the private sector, civil society, and international organizations. That's why we started deciding who were the stakeholders and who were the factors that needed to be involved in the management of the internet. So, a brief history of .tt. .tt was delegated to Patrick Hossain by John Postel himself in 1993. From the beginning, Patrick worked with UE and the technical community, especially IEEE, and internet users, which included myself and Deb and some of the others, in as advisors and so forth in the CTTLD management. He created a company in 1995. So it wouldn't be, oh yeah, this CCTLD is in the name of a person. And the government of Trinidad and Tobago is interested in redelegating it since 1997. And there have been many consultations and so on to determine the way forward, because everyone considers the CCTLD national patrimony, but that does not mean that that it needs to be government owned. It means it needs to be managed for the benefit of the country. So several times there were some redelegations, and in 2009 there was a big process that we went through, which I was a member of the team doing it, and we had a lot of consultations with stakeholders, and they sat for, I think it was a period of 3 months, 3-4 months, and went through different models of management, and almost everybody preferred the multi-stakeholder model, except for the government. And the government, a lot of the reasons that people didn't want to hand it over to the government, it was a lack of trust, because, we do have an issue sometimes with handing something over to the government and being left out. Because even if a government says, yeah, we're going to do it, we're going to involve you, sometimes you're not too comfortable with the idea that they're going to involve you as a partner, and maybe you lose out on your opportunity to make a difference. So, issues that we had, .tt was focused on technical excellence. .tt runs brilliantly on the technical side. We help other people, other CCTLDs. We've got our own software that is written and in-house and supported by some of the projects that TT-NIC does. However, the user experience was lacking. And that was one of the reasons that the government was looking to get involved. And we had a lot of requests to update the user experience and to organize the policies. And we determined that a MAG, multi-stakeholder advisory group, was considered by all the stakeholders to be a fair and legitimate way to develop the CCTLD policy. So, in the last consultations, we determined that the major stakeholders were the government, the internet users, the academic community, the technical community, civil society, and the business and commercial community. So what happened was TT-NIC said, well, we need to go and find some people from these communities to come and form a multi-stakeholder advisory group. So they got volunteers to form the interim MAG, and the interim MAG sat for nearly a year and worked out the structure of the MAG, the size of it, the terms of reference of it. We determined that, I was a member of that. We determined the mission, the vision, developed the company structure, registered the company, and confirmed the stakeholder organizations who had expressed interest. We spoke to a lot of them, and some of them expressed interest in having members on the MAG. So we spoke to them, and we determined who would be invited, and TT-NIC went ahead and invited those representatives, and it was constituted in September 2015 officially. The institutions that we have so far, academic, we have a representative from UWI, a representative from UTT. Everybody knows what UWI is. UTT is the University of Trinidad and Tobago. For internet users, we have the Trinidad and Tobago Computer Society. From the technical community, the IEEE Trinidad and Tobago chapter and the ISOC Trinidad and Tobago chapter. And NIHRST, which is one of our science and technology organizations from the public sector. And we also work closely with the regulator. They did not think it appropriate for them to sit on the MAG, but they work with us very closely. For ISPs and the IXP, they determined that they would have one representative to represent both because the IXP pretty much represents all the ISPs in Trinidad and Tobago. Civil society, we've got the Rotary Club, and business and commercial, the Trinidad and Tobago Coalition of Service Industries agreed to join the telecoms companies. We haven't got a consensus representative from them yet because there's a lot of competition and they're not really organized just yet. But we can't really have Flow and Digicel and TSCT, and we can't have all of them as members. So we asked them to get together and pick one. They haven't done that yet, but we do still work with them and talk to them. And these are the current members of the TT Mag. The TT NIC, Patrick Hossain is the chair, and George Gubin, who is the director of TT NIC, they're the chair and vice chair. We've got Sindra Sukhanan, who is the corporate secretary from TT NIC. And then we've got Sanjay Bahadur Singh, who is our rep from UE. Tracy, who you've all heard of before, from ISOC, me from UTT, Danny Jagannath as a business representative, Devanand Tilak Singh from Trinidad and Tobago Computer Society, Ajmal from the IXP, Dev Gosain from Rotary Club, and Kathy Ann Joseph Crease. Unfortunately, I didn't have a photo for her right now, and she's from Nehurst. Nehurst is representing the government right now. Nehurst. Yeah. We asked who they want, where they wanted us to go for a representative. And they said Nehurst. We said, okay. Well, I mean, the government should know who they wanted to be their person. So how are we structured? We usually have a monthly working meeting about 4 hours long. We do online work. We have a document repository. We use email. We use chat, messaging, WhatsApp when necessary. Like right now, they're WhatsApping each other. The Stadnet admin roles, we have a chair, a vice chair, a corporate secretary, and a treasurer. The treasurer was voted among from the members of the MAG. It's currently Sanjay. We have subcommittees, each focus on particular areas of interest. I, for example, sit on the policy development subcommittee. Tracy and Ajmal are on the business development subcommittee, and so on. And with regard to liaising with different organizations and attending meetings, we share that among ourselves, depending on who's available, who's free, who's not working, who can take time off to go to the various meetings. The roles and responsibilities of the TT Mag. What did we decide we wanted the TT Mag to be and to do? We wanted to be an independent entity for the promotion and development of best practice policy standards for the .tt-CCLD. And as well, we added on the local internet ecosystem in the interests of the internet community of Trinidad and Tobago. So we're not just focused on CCTLD management. We're looking to go a little bit beyond that. Some of the things we wanted to do, and this is all in our documentation that was created by the to serve the needs of any specific cohesive community of interest and the local internet community in the context of internet evolution, particularly in education, internet infrastructure development, internet standards, experimentation, public policies, regulatory coordination regarding internet content and services, and contributing to internet governance. Basically, everything internet, we've made a very broad thing. So anything internet that interests us, we can work on a project with regard to it. So we promote activities and so on. The other thing that we do, things that we've done so far, we've done policies for .tt. We've revamped and rejiggered most of the policies, the EDUTT, education domain policies. We've created policies for religious organizations, charitable institutions, NGO and community-based organizations, and we are currently working on expanding and justifying our reserved domain list. We also have been doing research and development of marketing strategies and policies for .tt. so that we can increase the uptake of .tt domains. With regard to internet governance in Trinidad and Tobago, we're planning to have an IGF TT later this year. We've been working with other CCTLDs in the region, both directly one-on-one and via the Caribbean TLD, CCTLD organization, Carib TLD. And as you see us here, we participated in CIGF, CIF, and CTU events. Internationally, we all work with ICANN and the IGF, and other things that we've been doing in Trinidad and Tobago. We do research. We have a labs.tt arm that is supported by TT-NIC, and that has been doing research and publishing. We've got a lot of graduate students in there, and they've been doing research on various internet technology things, and they've been publishing quite a lot of research. We've been commenting on various policy issues in Trinidad, in local and regional ICT issues. We've supported ICT education and ICT in education projects, and we sponsored events, particularly student participation in events like this. International and ICT participation, ICANN, we are on the CCNSO, we have members on the GAC who sit in on the GAC, we have members who work on working groups, we've got members who work in at large, basically everywhere in ICANN, we have members who sit in and participate in working groups and attend meetings. We participate in the IGF. We are currently co-organizer of the Small Island Developing States Roundtable at the 2016 Global IGF. And then, so that's what we're doing right now. Now the question is, what do we do? What do we want to do from here? Well, obviously we want to expand .tt domain use and sales, because that's partially how we're funded. We want to support the creation and growth of local content, local e-commerce, local hosting. Our business development team is currently talking to hosting companies and the IXP about setting up projects for local hosting and bundling them with the domain name and that kind of thing. Local ICT development. We also have, besides LabTT, we've got open data projects and a couple others. We want to support other regional CCTLDs with, especially on the technical side, with the software and stuff that we have developed. And of course, now we've developed our policies, we're willing to share those as well. Consultancy services. If you want somebody to come and set up your CCTLD technically, we have the staff. And other internet events in Trinidad and Tobago, and increased participation from Trinidad and Tobago and the region in international and Regency policy fora. And that is the story of the TT Mag to date. If you want to find us, there's an email address, info@mag.tt, and a website at www.mag.tt. Thank you.
Thank you, Jacqueline. Okay, so I hope you have questions. You could hold them until after Jason's presentation. So we now turn to Jason Hynds from the Barbados MAG. Jason.
Thank you. Yes, I'm from Barbados, and I represent the Barbados Remote Hub, and I'm a member of the Internet Society Barbados chapter and a few other local ICT and IT security associations. And we have been collaborating in what you can call a multi-stakeholder way, but it would be sort of incorrect to say we officially have a Barbados multi-stakeholder advisory group. But we have a developing internet governance movement. And I think in terms of the increased intensity with respect to that, credit has to go back to the point at which we were collaborating on a telecommunications unit project with so we as part of the Barbados ICT Professionals Association, we were part of the project that was leading towards the Barbados Internet Exchange Point, and having met Bevel Wooden, Packet Clearinghouse, I think it catalyzed a lot more movement in the local ICT community, especially when we heard about Carbnog and first participated in Carbnog 4 in late 2012 in Grenada. And it has led to increased participation by Barbadians and eventually a coming together and putting on of events and so on. So in terms of our development, there was increased adoption of some of the tools and communication resources that is used in the regional and the international community. We started sharing things we knew about events, more of a mailing list and so on. We got more Barbadians participating in regional and international meetings, sometimes individually and eventually into hubs. And we started getting more Barbadians attending some of these meetings, beyond the ones that may have been invited, especially to meetings by CTU traditionally. We started having increased numbers, so that was extremely good. So Barbadians have started attending Carbnog more, RN meetings, participating in the South School on Internet Governance. And we collaborated on local events and remote hub activities. So I'm going to go into that now. The aim of when we have the remote hub activities is that we have been trying to keep it as open participation. So we bring on more and more stakeholders all the time. And we've been building our multi-stakeholder activity, collaboration and so on as an activity. So usually it's the outgrowth of having some event. So the first time we participated and had a remote hub was for ICANN 51 in October of 2014. Yeah, sorry about that typo. Yeah, so it was actually October 16th, 2014, the Los Angeles meeting. And here you see who's our current ISOC Barbados chapter president, Rodney Taylor. I think this was just after his stint with the CTU, given an intervention, and I'm somewhere in the background, and a few university students and a professor in the background. And the University of the West Indies Cave Hill campus have been a constant collaborator from the time we started pushing this idea of increased participation with academia and with their students, and have been very generous in sharing their venue and connectivity and other resources and manpower and so on. So they're absolutely awesome for us. The whole remote hub activity, well, these events, just like how this event is bringing people together and we network during the break, you know, having the events in Barbados have been causing us to network more locally, and great ideas come out of the side conversation. And it has led to the movement towards formalizing things more and being able to access more resources, hopefully, by forming an Internet Society chapter. So that is one of the things that we have successfully started. It took about a year in development in terms of finalizing everything. there are certain requirements you have to fulfill. Like you have to have at least 25 persons, and at first we probably started the conversation with a group of about 4 or 5 people who were interested, and we were wondering if we could get 25 persons. That turned out not to be that big a barrier, but there were some formal stuff to do that delayed stuff, and there's always the challenge of trying to do these things without maybe a lot of resources at your disposal to rent a venue or do something that maybe it would be better if a professional service performed it for you for a fee, and using up volunteers' time and still being able to participate in this very hectic and event-laden internet governance community, plus do actual work for yourself and actually study and that type of thing. So we try to connect to our community in the most open way, and we're sending emails all the time about events and trying to arrange things, and we're collaborating via the free tools that are available with each other to put on these things. But we try to centralize most of the promotion for our activities by having social media presence. So we have a Facebook page for the Barbados Remote Hub, and a lot of stuff goes out for that. The Internet Society has a mailing list, and a lot of stuff goes out on that. And the Barbados Remote Hub also has a mailing list. But the Internet Society mailing list at present is the larger one. So most stuff tends to go out on that. We've been trying to do enough administration per each event that we keep growing our community and diversifying the stakeholder base. So some of our partners and most of the partnerships came out of the creation of the Internet Society when we had to declare partnerships. So UEK-Phil, of course, we have connections with the Barbados Community College, and especially through the Barbados ICT Professionals Association, BPA, and we're running internship programs within that with both institutions. So that tends to help us connect to the students more. Like, for example, the hub has pulled the intern in through that process and is helping to introduce some person to the community, basically as a work assignment. We're connected to civil society through the Barbados Association of Non-Governmental Organizations. In terms of government, the telecoms unit, well, this stuff started at one of their projects. So kudos to them. And the data processing department is a big partner. And we do have some event-based collaboration with a few other government departments, like the Media Resource Department has been absolutely wonderful in helping us out with Girls in ICT Day when we had that. The Barbados Investment and Development Corporation has helped our participation in some CARBNOG-related activities. In terms of the private sector, well, I would say that we're connected to the Barbados Coalition of Service Industries, and that has helped in the whole creation and formal creation of the Internet Society Barbados chapter as well. So that would be very similar to the Trinidadian Association Coalition of Service Industries, in that it contains a number of associations that represent sectors and of industry and so on, and it also fosters and provides secretarial services for some of those entities and venues and so on. So it's been a good collaborator with ISOC BB so far. A few private companies, such as PC and related technological services, have been offering resources to help with a lot of the technical and administrative stuff that we needed to do to keep going and keep putting on events. We've housed several events, as I said, and this event-based approach, we've it's a mixture of mostly remote hub activities. So in 2000 and so far for the year, we've had 4 remote hubs. Sorry. We've had, I think, about 6 remote hubs and 4 actual events that were live and not necessarily web streamed anywhere, but all ICT related. And in each of these events, I do try to infuse some manner of internet governance in it. And you'll see some evidence of this in some further slides. For 2015, we had, I think, 3 remote hubs and 5 actual live events. So we've been doing well on the event side as an entity that actually was not formally constructed despite tries from maybe back in 2015. So one of the events, so we go very young too in terms of our outreach and our infusion of some of these internet governance concepts. So here you see Shine the Light Ashel, who's in our audience right now, presenting in 2015 to some secondary school students on something. I was at a clashing synchronized event, so I didn't get to hear her wonderful presentation. This is the one I was at, which was for the primary schools. So we do put in at least a session on some type of cybersecurity and some internet concept in most of these things. This is Girls in ICT Day 2016, actually. Slightly mislabeled there. And that guy to the front is the ICANN senior manager for regional engagement, presenting to maybe something just short of 100 young ladies from most of the primary schools in a particular parish, and realizing that they actually knew some stuff about their CCTLD. So you know, the youth are very tech savvy, and this slot is an example of us collaborating with the data processing department in their training lab for the remote hub. But many of the remote hub activities tend to occur at the University of the West Indies Cave Hill campus in diverse rooms and with a lot of technical assistance from them in terms of making sure that we have wonderful streaming and so on. Several entities are really helpful at the point when we put on these things, but there's a need for more collaboration and more structure in most of these things. So we look forward to deeper relationships from the government entities and more resources and deeper relationships with our international and regional bodies and having a lot of these things well planned and being able to pull in the audience and keep people active and participating and to do great things for you know, further development of the CCTLD space and all the various aspects of internet governance within our locale. We do plan to have a Barbados IGF. Originally, we were trying to see if there was a way that we could pull it together before this event. That proved to be impossible in terms of the schedule and the resources, so it's a next year thing. One of the great things that one of the members of the community that we unfortunately lost last year did, he started a Facebook group called the Barbados Internet Governance Forum. And we have a few people there, but we have to keep increasing the interaction and the development of topics. And that coupled with what we're doing in the Internet Society chapter, Barbados chapter, can hopefully give us a good audience base and a good set of local topics. Coming up in September, for instance, we are collaborating in multi-stakeholder way, but mostly it's an Internet Society Barbados chapter event. There's going to be Intercommunity 2016, I think September 23rd. So we're going to have like a INET style event in Barbados. So this will probably be our dry run before we actually get to put on a Barbados Internet Governance Forum, focusing on issues of access and trust. And hopefully this event plus that helps builds us up well in terms of what type of things we should be doing for the future Barbados Internet Governance Forum, and hopefully moving towards that, we'll have a more structured MAG and be just churning out greater and greater Barbados participation. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Well, we've heard the 2 case studies presented. This is the time for the audience to participate. So if you have any questions to direct at either participant. I see Kevin and Nigel. Well, you have the mic. Why never use it?
Good afternoon. Wow, that's loud. Thanks to the panelists for those wonderful case studies. And I learned some stuff in particular when it came to the Barbados Remote Hub and the activities in Barbados. My question is actually directed to Jackie, and it deals with the TT MAG in moving beyond the CCTLD management. What is the scope for collaboration with other TNT internet actors, and what would those endeavors look like? So, for instance, I know you can speak to comfortably about the TTCS and ISOC-TT and other actors out there. So could you just give a bit more details in some of that scope for collaboration in the other activities that are anticipated?
Well, we do know that we can't do everything ourselves because the MAG is, but representatives of the organizations on the MAG, usually what we do work with them in events that and activities that we do. So those representatives pull in their own organizations. But of course, we're open to working with everyone who is interested in working in the space, because we have so few people and we're so small, we really cannot leave out anyone, because it's not as if we've got millions and millions and billions of people. There's Trinidad, it's small, it's 1 million people. There's not much, where there's no space to really leave out people. So no, we are totally open to working with everyone who's interested.
Thank you, Jacqueline. Nigel.
Thank you, Nigel Casimir, for the remote participants. I understand from Jackie's presentation that, in fact, we could probably ask two questions. The TT MAG basically is the steering committee, board, whatever, of the CCTLD in Trinidad and Tobago. Do you think, or to what extent do you think that might be sufficient in terms of a multi-stakeholder group contact in Trinidad and Tobago for general internet governance issues, or what sort of further outreach might be recommended for Trinidad and Tobago in that regard, such that we could get a wider representation, maybe if necessary, of all internet stakeholders for internet governance purposes. And on Jason's side, I've seen the remote hubs and stuff being done, and you mentioned that we've been doing this, we've been doing that, but I'm not quite sure who this is. You know, if we could clarify that, is it a formalized group of any sort? Is it the ISOC chapter? Is it just an informal group of people? What is it? Right. So that's my two questions.
Okay, basically you're asking if the MAG, well, the MAG, first of all, is a separate and distinct registered company. The idea of the number of membership organizations is not fixed. It's small right now because, as we said, a lot of people that we approach were kind of like, internet, what? Why we have to? We had to send somebody. They had to go meetings. Seriously, you know. And so we still have people who haven't taken up their spaces in that area. But the idea was to have 2 representatives from each of the stakeholder communities. With regard to other events beyond the CCTLD, like, for example, the IGF that we're looking to hold, that is definitely a thing where MAG has its space, but we obviously have to get a lot of other actors in Trinidad and Tobago involved in order to have a successful IGF, for example. So it's a combination of, yes, the MAG with regard to the role of CCTLD, the policy development and advice and so on, is decent size for what it does there. But with regard to other spaces in the internet governance, we definitely, whatever ideas we want to do with partners, and we hope that things that other people want to do, they will consider us as a potential partner for these events as well. Because as I said, we're too small to do everything alone.
Okay, so we, in terms of the hub and these other activities, has mostly been an ad hoc group of collaborators drawn from multiple associations, multiple ICT associations. So basically what became the Internet Society Barbados chapter is it has connections to ICT associations that went before. So the Barbados ICT Professionals Association, several members are members of the ISOC chapter, the Internet Society of Barbados, BANGO, which is the Barbados Association of Non-Governmental Organizations, a civil society body. And people drawn from each of those have been collaborators in producing some of these events, and dependent on the slant of the event, because effort is something more networking slant. Then some people in UE who are into that might be more active collaborators. Effort has more of a cybersecurity slant. Some of the people from the Information System Security Association Barbados chapter might help out a bit more. But what the hub is developing into is being an entity in its own right, perhaps under some type of a foundation structure to carry some of the events forward with more agility and better structure. But there'll always be, I hope, great collaboration with the Internet Society Barbados chapter, from whom we take the people resources mostly, and with definitely the university, because we need to constantly engage that cycle of students that are coming through to the various disciplines. The easy one to get is the computer science students, I think, and one of the computer science professors and the campus IT services department are great collaborators. But we having the events at that venue really helps in terms of that, of new students, introducing them to these concepts and so on. And sometimes the students have helped out as well in the production of the hub events and other events, as presenters, as coordinators and so on. So the one being done at present in Barbados, there was student help in developing that, as well as the university, as well as the government entity, the data processing department, and some collaboration with the telecoms unit. So that's the usual thing.
Just to, is there another question from the hall? Yes, sir, Mr. Sanchez.
Okay, my name is Hugo Vasquez from Corozal up north, where these forums never take place. You know, we have to come 2 hours to be part of one, and if you're not too operative in looking at the news, you don't even know what's happening because you don't get an email. Well, so no problem. And I want to do what Nigel and Carlton and my friend here, Albert, has said, just ask a question to participate. Is that okay? Thank you very much. I was very interested in hearing what Jacqueline has been saying about what they're doing at TNT, no? And actually, TT. Actually, Barbados to me has been a place that has excited me from the mid-90s, you know, doing very innovative things. I remember there was a group leaving here from the university who went there to deal with the data processing and stuff like that. You know, and so I've been kind of looking like a model for the Caribbean. At any rate, I wanted to ask Jacqueline about what has actually been done on the ground for research and development, 1, 2, on local content, and 3, in e-commerce.
Okay, research and development, I'd have to look that up because I know that they've got like, I think last I checked, 7 or 8 research papers in various stages of publication. And I am not an electronic or computer engineer, so some of the details escape me. I'm an engineer, but not that kind. So some of the more particular details of those research papers escape. I'm not great on. What? Okay. I'm sorry, what was the rest of it? Research and then
research and development,
right.
Local content, and e-commerce.
Right. With regard to the local content, we are working with the IXP and a couple of hosting companies in Trinidad to start to work towards a project where we are going to hope to get them to start putting the local content that's being created, because Trinidad and Tobago is a place that creates massive amounts of local content. We've got animation, we've got lots of writers, we've got musicians galore, and designers. The UTT in particular started doing a lot of work with that. We've got fashion designers, clothing designers, all sorts of things. And we want them to start utilizing the internet to start selling their stuff and diversifying. So it's a kind of combination of both your local content and so on. So, but the project that we're working on right now, it hasn't gone, there's been discussions, but there's nothing signed yet with regard to tying together the IXPs, the hosting companies, and the MAG and the TTNIC to give .tt domains to them to use, to give them hosting, because TeachingNIC will give free hosting for a period of time, along with the domain name, in the hosting facility that we've identified when they sign on. And the IXP will be giving us the bandwidth. That's the idea right now. So that if we're doing local e-commerce, it'll be not using our external bandwidth. And if we're doing external e-commerce, we'll be using a lot of the current. But right now, there's a lot of on the international lines. Most of the thing is a download, so the upload side is pretty empty. So they're going to be aiming to balance it out using that kind of idea. I hope it was clear.
Yeah, thank you very much, Jacqueline.
So maybe I could add one thing that Patrick Azane, who is a professor at the UWI St. Augustine. Patrick is also one of two of the IEEE fellows in the region. That's a big honor. Patrick has provided a portal for open data for quite some time. And he's been collecting data sets that are on the open data rules and hosting it. And he's providing hosting for people who want to develop. He's been working together with some of the outcomes from the P.A.R.T.S Foundation initiative in training mobile developers, youngsters who are into mobile development, and giving them access to those data sets to see what they can produce as app using the data, underlying data. So that has been an initiative that Patrick has taken on, and I've been supporting of it for quite a few years. Yeah, there's a website you can go to look for that. So that's one initiative that I know has been going on for some time. It's well structured.
Carlton, I think a couple of years ago, I got a solicitation to give internet to some guys that came to do app development at a rural village in Corozal. What was it? Copper Bank. So the people who came to do that project were the Firefox people. So they were requesting internet. So they couldn't get it otherwise from the monopolies. So we gave them free internet for a couple of weeks. I just wanted to mention that's what I look forward to, to be able to reach marginalized areas and give as many people as possible and develop them through the ICT projects. Thank you.
Thank you. It's a good thing you remember you bring it up, because we can say something about that too. One of the things that I am involved in the internet because of the development agenda. That's what I'm committed to. Internet for economic and social development. And I am more interested in what you use it for, believe it or not, than what it actually is. It is very important to me to hear of initiatives that are helping marginalized and underserved communities make some use of the internet to improve their station and their status and their circumstances. And that is something that you do well with. You mentioned providing internet bandwidth access to some group that was going to help people develop coding capabilities. And that's how it develops. That's how you do it. It has to be a coalition. It has to be a collaboration. I call it a coalition of the willing. Whoever is willing, you embrace them and you put your little bit in and you maximize what you give by collaborating with others and adding your little bit to their little bit, and pretty soon you have quite a big bit going around. And this is the model that we are promoting for Caribbean integration, using the values, using the abilities, using the resources of each of us to add it to all of us. And that is what we feel is going to inure to the benefit of all of us.
We just add I did find some of the papers finally. A lot of the work that that TT Labs is doing is for quality of service enabled wireless networks. So there's a paper on congestion detection. There are papers using on work doing deep neural networks. There is a quality of service support for high performance computing on mobile devices. That's the kind of work that TT Labs is working on.
Please.
Yes, I remember you from Carbnog 5 in 2013, and that similar comment about Barbados, so thank you. I was struck by the part about you maybe getting the information late about the event, and I think that one of the reasons why we have the remote hub and we move towards the Internet Society chapter is that we have a bit of a challenge with information sharing, timely information sharing in our ICT community and by extension our internet governance community. So, you know, for this event, it was important to let our people know that this was coming off, if they're going to have travel plans or going to be applying for travel support, and to let them know about the hub so they could arrange to get leave or whatever from work if they're going to be participating. And if you have that challenge here, I think certainly there need to be some association structure or some person who, you know, gets contacts together on a mailing list and using all the other modern tools in terms of be it WhatsApp or Facebook or something, so that you can be up to date on the events that are happening here or the ones that are happening internationally that you can participate in more. And I would also like to encourage Belize as well to follow some of the remote events as a cluster in like a hub. And Mr. Daniels and I were actually having a chat about perhaps having a hub like that for the ICANN 57 meeting in India, which will have quite of a time shift. But, you know, already we have some volunteers and maybe 4 or 5 interested people. So I think that needs to grow into a mailing list or something, that and maybe a social media presence in terms of Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and so on, that people get these updates and know when things are coming off and so on. So I hope that helps solve your problem and helps to spur some action so that you don't have to come from Curacao too late and miss a day or so, because it's always interesting having you in the room.
Thank you, Jason. Just to mention the website for, if you want to look at what's happening at TT, at lab.tt, it's one website, lab.tt. That is the research, where you see the research papers, and lab, LAB. And for the open data, it's data.tt. And the data sets there are not just from Trinidad, they're from all over. I know we have Jamaican data sets that you've got from Jamaica, and there's some collaboration with the Open Data Institute in Jamaica, the University of Western Mona. So all of these things are available. We are almost at the end of the, Albert? Well, we have 2 more minutes. Okay, Asha.
Hi, Asha Ford, Barbados Telecom Unit. I am interested to know, I guess, particularly from Jacqueline, how you go about combating volunteer burnout. Because in the 5 minutes that I've been involved in internet governance issues in the region, you get to be familiar with certain faces. You know, it's always the same people. You go to all these meetings, and if Tracy isn't joining remotely, Rodney is, or, you know, and for a lot of us, persons who are interested, I mean, some of us are not lucky enough that it's your job to be here, that your job is going to send you. It's something that you may be passionate about and you want to do it. And when it's the same people all the time, you kind of get, the work isn't spread out. So I'm curious to know, in the Trinidad context, if you've experienced that, whether it's yourself or with your colleagues, and how, if there are any mechanisms you've been employing.
Well, yes, there's burnout. I did myself a couple of years ago. I took a year out entirely, like nothing. But the way we've been combating it from day one is a combination of divide and conquer. Yeah, relays. Divide. So what happens is that we can't, one person, you can't, there's a lot of stuff, but you can't take on everything yourself. So everybody takes a little chunk and focuses on that. And then it's the way you do road cycling races. You've got one person breaking the wind in the front of the pack. And then when they're tired, they drop back and somebody else takes over. That's what we do. And that way you can draft along a little bit and let somebody else take the lead and push through. And then when they're tired, somebody else steps up to do that. And that's the only way we've managed to do it for 11, 12 years now. And that it also helps to get new blood in, because there's sometimes after you've, taken your turn in front for a long, long time, when you drop back, you just drop back further and further. And you hope sometimes that you really do hope to get new people involved. But there aren't enough really new people coming in. But the main thing, take a rest. You cannot be in front all the time. You cannot work at that rate all the time. And make sure that your body holds up, because it's only one body you got, and you got to take care of it. If you burn it out, then what's the point? Nobody's going to write on your tombstone, "Here lies Jacqueline. She went to every ICANN meeting." That's not going to be important when I'm dying.
Well, I was trying to point out to Jacqueline that it's not our day job. We have full-time jobs, and this is a labor of love, really, and interest. Albert. And Albert, while you I get a remote question, so you may as well answer it. The remote question comes from Tracy Akshaw. And he says, are there funding available to host an ICANN up in the Caribbean? Is there funding available to support hosting another ICANN hub in the Caribbean?
Another
ICANN remote hub.
Oh, remote hub, yeah. So there is a standard process. Jason is pretty familiar with it for hosting remote hubs, and an application is made, it's considered, and the simple answer is yes. So within the scope, for example, of what we've been discussing here in Belize, if it crystallizes and the application goes forward, then there are some funds available from ICANN to support certain aspects of running the hub. It's also expected usually that there is an element of local support from one or two small sponsors to deal with, things like refreshments and catering and so on. The comment I wanted to make goes back to the sharing of information on events. And this is a perennial issue. And as a matter of fact, it goes even beyond potential participants knowing about events. It even goes all the way up to organizers of events having conflicts with the events. I remember one time in Trinidad, we did an event 1 week on IPv6, and the very next week, to my surprise, there was a similar IPv6 event going on with other providers. So one of the solutions that the at-large community has come up with, and in particular Devanand Tilaksing, is developed an open calendar where organizations having events can post information on those events. And we're talking ISOC, LACNIC, ARIN, ICANN, anybody who even becomes aware of this. We discussed this last week at the Canto meeting. And the whole idea is that if you have someone who regularly checks this, what's happening in August, then you can see, what's actually taking place. So maybe I'm thinking that we can pass the link to Nigel at the CTU, and it can be placed on the CTU website as part of the materials for this event. So then you never again not be aware of what's happening in Belize or in the neighboring region.
So is there a last question from the floor? Yes? No? Glenn?
Glenn McKnight. A couple of things that I'll go back to the slide that Jackie mentioned earlier about the stakeholders, and it made a list of the participants, and one of the areas was civil society, and I looked at the list of people who participated. What's perhaps you did this separate from the membership, but as you know, there's 14% of the world is disabled, and according to Pew Internet study recently, the group that is most marginalized in terms of internet access is the disabled group. In the United States, only 42% of the population has broadband access. So I just want to ask you, what efforts were made to reach out to the stakeholders in the disabled or special needs community within this group, and if any, because if they're not at the table, they're not represented.
Part of the issue is that the special needs community in Trinidad and Tobago is not very well yet. It's not yet very well organized with that many organizations. There's one disabled organization, and there's the Blind Association, and there's now starting up an autistic society. Well, it's there, but it's now basically ramping up. So my father himself is disabled, he's blind, and we have reached out, but their focus is, it's Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Their focus is not on internet issues. Their focus is on getting access to public buildings and buses, and having people understand that when you're walking across the street with a white cane, it's not to drive up on you and knock it off. You know, we're at a very, very basic level with regard to that. But there, as I said, my dad does give us a lot of input. I do know we have some people who give us input, but they're not in a situation to come to be an organization and come and give that much time to something that is not as upfront and center for them right now. But no, we do definitely pay attention to that, but they don't have the time to respond to us yet.
Just to say something on that, the CTU, from a Caribbean point of view, however, over the last, I would say, 2 years, at each of our statutory meetings, which is at least twice a year, and sometimes more often than that because we do have other events, has a program on ICT for persons with disabilities. So whichever country we go to and have our meetings, we'll have something relevant to the local community there, bring to them the information related to how ICT can positively impact their lives. And even in the recently organized broadband forum in Trinidad and Tobago that CTU organized with the Commonwealth Telecoms Organization, there was a session in there which dealt with that. So we are building the awareness, notwithstanding that notwithstanding that there's a long way to go in the individual countries. Right, we are actually doing that. So I'll let Carlton wind up and then make the house announcement.
Thank you for that, Nigel. So just a few takeaways from this this session that I would urge you to think about. You hear time and time again, it's a people thing. It's people, and you have to reach them, and you have to organize them, and you have to get their interest. You organize around shared objectives. Sometimes it's shared pain, but it's shared objectives. That is the principal organizing model. And it's about process. Always have to involve in a process to get from here to there. And you start small, but you always have to embrace that it is a coalition of the willing. There are people out there who are willing to work together, who have shared objectives, and who are willing to take the long road. Thank you, all of you, on behalf of the panelists here, and sitting with us through this exercise. We didn't serve our remote participants too well because there were some questions that they wanted to ask that was not getting to us, and for that we apologize profusely. I wish to bring this event to an end. Thank you, one and all.
Okay. Thank you, Carlton and panel. We will now break for lunch. I think what we'll do is try to find some way of at least trying to address the remote participants' queries in the